What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video, and I've got another first 12 figure focus for you, this time focused on the Sand People or the Tuscan Raider if you feel like talking dirty to me. I got a couple of things I wanted to mention before we dig into the Tuscan Raider. And number one, as always, thanks to all my Patreon supporters. You guys allow me to make more and better videos. We're closing in on 3,300 subscribers, and I'm going to be giving away one of those case shell sliding acrylic cases. The previous person never claimed her 3-pack, so I'm going to do a second giveaway for that as well. So I've got lots of giveaways lined up. I've even got a Black Series figure coming. So that's that. And also, before I wanted to mention this before I started digging into the Tuscan Raider. I went and saw the new Batman movie with Robert Pattinson, and I got to tell you that it's the greatest superhero movie I've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, you got to go see it. It is unbelievable. It blows literally every other superhero movie I've ever seen out of the way, including the latest Spider-Man, which I loved, all the other Batman trilogies with Christopher Nolan. This one is the best, in my opinion. It's just an incredible movie, and you got to see it. Okay, let's dig into the Tuscan Raider, the first 12. I've got everything from loose ungraded and all the way to loose graded to mint on card, both graded and ungraded. And the Tuscan Raider is an interesting character because it's got a number of really subtle variations to the figure. And I'm going to try to cover as much of it as I can, as well as prices. But I just wanted to kind of first show a typical example. And this is like a typical, let's call it 75 plus to 80 grade example. This one sold for $43. It was listed as complete. I do want to mention, though, that you need to be careful for these ungraded Tuscan Raiders because the gaffy stick is very heavily reproed. So there's a lot of reproduction gaffy sticks out there. And for a detailed guide on that, you might want to check out Rogue 5 Vintage Toys. They had a repro roundup video here recently about the gaffy stick and how those are very plentiful out there and what to spot for those. So be on the lookout for those. There's obviously clearly reproduction capes as well, so you got to be, just be careful about what you're buying and make sure you're buying it from a trusted source. But $43 for a kind of a lower end example, 75 grade. For a near mint example, you're talking closer to $60 to $70 minimum for a standard Hong Kong version. The things to look out for obviously are the paint around the face, the breathing apparatus around his neck, and then the bandoliers. The hands can get a lot of paint wear, and of course, most notably, the cheeks, the eyes, eye tubes, and the head horns. That silver wears off super easy, so it's really difficult to find these in clean condition ungraded. But they're out there, and this is a good example of one. So this one was $60 plus $10 shipping. So that gives you a rough range depending on what grade you're looking for. Here's another really nice example. Now this one was the hollow cheeks, and we're going to talk more about graded examples for the hollow cheeks. And what am I referring to for those of you who maybe aren't familiar? These cheek tubes right here can come hollowed. And that's a very desirable variant that was available, to my knowledge, only on later card backs. So Return of the Jedi card backs, 65, 77 backs, things like that. It was just a mold variation within I believe, the Hong Kong factories. And so those hollow cheeks are very desirable. And even ungraded examples like this can go for big money. And they typically have the dark brown paint for the bandoliers and for the hands, face. So it's a darker brown paint, and then those cheeks are hollowed out, as you can see. So this was an ungraded example that sold back in December for $221, and quite honestly, it's probably even more than that now. This figure variant has really accelerated in price. It used to be you could pick up a mint on card version of this for about $600, and now high grade, loose graded AFA examples go for that. So, and we'll talk more about that later on. But I've got a number of other kind of standard Hong Kong variations we're going to talk about. But before I dig into those prices, I did want to quickly point out from the Spanish PvP/POC guide by Javier Ruy Lopez is that there is a Spanish POC version. It's very difficult to find. You do not see it very often. I did print out some pages, though. It's a very subtle variation that's difficult to spot because it also does have a Hong Kong date stamp on it, as you'd expect for those early Spanish POC figures. As I've mentioned in past videos, the Spanish pot figures used Hong Kong parts, but they were assembled and painted in Spain. So they're going to have the Hong Kong date stamp on there, and that's why it's very difficult to spot one. But I have seen them come up for sale irregularly. Here's one mint on card on the Spanish pot card. Very, very pricey. I would imagine this would be several thousands of dollars. But it's known to have the dark bandolier, and you can see that here. And what they did was they compared a standard Hong Kong to the dark brown bandolier, and you can see the very subtle paint difference on the paint. There are a couple of different variations, which makes it even more complicated for the Spanish figure. These are the date stamps for the Spanish figures, and you can see that the Hong Kong can be in two different spots relative to the GMFGCI stamp. So you got that here where the Hong Kong is offset a little bit lower, and then you also have it where it's lined up with the copyright stamp. So those are both of these are the date stamps for the Spanish pot figure. And here's another example here of the figure relative to the Hong Kong. The gaffy stick can come with either the regular standard Hong Kong gaffy stick, or there's a slightly let's call it like a greenish brown gaffy stick that was also known to come with. That's that bottom gaffy stick that I'm circling here. So this gaffy stick is pretty tough to find. I haven't seen many examples of that, but they are out there. Now you can see here these photos are labeled 2, 3, and 4. Number 4 is the standard Hong Kong, but what I mentioned earlier is that the bandolier colors can come in two different shades. This is the dark brown, and then there's that same kind of lighter greenish brown that you saw for the gaffy stick that was also used for painting the bandolier. So it's just one of those very difficult to spot variations, and when they do come up, they do go up for pretty big money. Let's dig back into some other loose graded examples. This is an AFA 75 plus standard Hong Kong figure. This was a 75 plus. It sold for $155. I did look up a number of examples for 75s to kind of 75 plus, and that's kind of been the going rate. Is anywhere from 100 and let's call it 130 up to about 175 for a 75 plus ish grade. Here was a UKG 85%. The subgrades were 85, 85, 90. So a very nice high grade Hong Kong example. That one sold for $166 plus shipping. So that gives you some rough price points. Here was an AFA 85 Hong Kong that sold for $255. And again, this is just the standard Hong Kong. But there are some variations, as I mentioned. This is the non-hollow cheeks version, so the standard Hong Kong, but it did have the dark brown paint, as you can see, and that's how it's labeled on the AFA label. This is one I've got in my collection, but this is uses a slightly darker paint shade for the bandoliers, the mouth, and the hands, the gloves. And that one sold for $222 with an older style case. It was an AFA 85. Another one, here's just another Hong Kong example. And this one also had the dark brown paint. That one sold for $370. Now that was an AFA 85 plus. So for an AFA 85 for $222 to an 85 plus for $371 plus shipping. So that gives you a rough price point for that dark brown paint Hong Kong version. And the other variation that I hadn't talked about yet is this one. This is the long eye tubes variant, another Hong Kong figure. And you can see how much longer those eye tubes are for the eye sockets. So that's a pretty desirable figure. You don't see that one come up very often either for sale. This one was graded 85, and as you can see there, it's labeled Hong Kong long eye tubes. So that's a really nice one. That one had an updated case plus the archival case, and that one sold for $425 on free shipping. So a pretty big number there. Now, going back to the hollow cheeks, there were a couple of hollow cheeks that sold. This one actually I thought was a pretty good price. This one was graded 85 plus, hollow cheeks, Hong Kong. That one sold for $552. And while this seller, SW seller, typically gets higher prices that we've talked about, this I actually thought was a pretty good price. And we've covered this one in a past vintage collection, or excuse me, vintage Kenner market update video. And how I said that I actually think this price was pretty good relative to some other sales that have happened for the hollow cheeks. And as a reference point, this one was a lower grade. It was an AFA 85 hollow cheeks. It had the older style case too. And that one sold for $765 on 25 bids on December 18th. So this one was higher grade, updated case, and it sold for about, a little over $200 less than what this one sold for in December. So that was a pretty good deal, actually. Here was another hollow tubes. This one was a UKG 80%, so lower grade, and that one sold for even more money when you convert it from Great British pounds to dollars. This one sold for 590 Great British pounds on February 13th, or $785. So some data points there for the hollow cheeks that's already loose graded. You're probably going to be talking $550 to $750 or even $800 for high grade hollow cheeks, loose graded. Now I wanted to finish off with some other mint on card examples. Before I do that, please consider leaving a like and commenting below. I really appreciate those of you who have been subscribing lately to the channel. It helps grow the channel, and the bigger the channel gets, the more giveaways I'll do. So I've got some more coming down the pipe. And one other variant that I didn't discuss that I just remembered, there is a no COO version that's most likely made in the Meccano factory. They appeared on Palatoy cards, on Palatoy Tri-Logo cards, but that's a pretty desirable and very difficult to find figure. I couldn't find the UKG graded example that sold a few months back. Both I and Blacked Out Ewoks, who's another YouTuber, we both bid on it unknowingly that we were bidding against each other. We both lost. I think it sold for about $400. It was a UKG 85% no COO Sand People or Tuscan Raider. And I believe that was made in the Meccano factory. Don't quote me on that, but I'm almost positive that's where it was made. But it's a very desirable variant that doesn't come up very much. It's the no COO hump variation for the date stamp. Heading back in now to mint on card figures. This was a 12 back B in pretty rough shape, but I wanted to give you some kind of data points here. Probably like 70 or even lower grade shape, but it is a 12 back and it is mint on card. That one sold for $750 plus $12 shipping. Here was a high grade 20 back E. This was CAS 85 plus. Wow. Very high grade 20 back E with the Kit Bash Boba Fett offer sticker. That one was 85, 90, 85 for the subgrade. So extremely high grade. Also unpunched. It did have a price sticker on it. That one sold for 775 pounds or a little over $1,000 US. Now, the 12 backs, again, depending on A, B, or C and how high a grade it is, this is probably on the low end for the price points these days. I've seen kind of upwards of $1,500 to $1,800 for very high grade 12 backs for the Sand People, and we'll have some more to cover here soon in another video related to some other auctions that I've been watching. Here was a 48 back Revenge of the Jedi sticker offer, but unfortunately this one did have a hole punch around the hang tab, so someone had punched a hole in it, so that it will hurt the grade quite a bit because that is not a factory standard hole punch around that hang tab. You can see around here someone had put a hole punch, probably to hang it up on a wall or something like that. But otherwise, it was a very nice example. That still sold for $400 plus $15 shipping. Now, if this had not had that hole punch, I did see one of these that sold that was graded, the 48 back with the Revenge sticker. That sold for double that, for about $800 or so. So that gives you a data point on an ESB card back. Another ESB, this was a lower grade 41 back A survival kit offer, probably like a 70 grade or less. That one sold for only $200. So, I mean, you can get a loose graded at high grade, or you can get a low grade mint on card for even less. So take that for what you will and how the market views that. This was another kind of lower grade ESB. This was the 47 back Forlom offer. You can see the litho damage there as well as creasing on the card. That still sold for $285 though. So, if you can live with lower grade items, we saw some loose graded that sell for more than this, or you can get a mint on card, still mint on card item that's lower grade for a good deal there. Here was a high grade 12 back C, and this kind of alludes back to what I was talking about earlier. Very high grade AFA 80 plus 12 back C Sand People with high subgrades. That one sold for $15.25, and that's kind of more in line with market for a 12 back that's in very high grade. I'd say kind of on the low end, you might get lucky and get one, say, with a price sticker that's ugly or a 75 subgrade for the card or something like that. You might get into the 1,200 range, maybe even as low as 1,000. But when they start having really high subgrades like that, and this is an overall 80 plus, you're going to be talking $1,500 to $1,800 pretty easily for a 12 back Sand People. That's all I really had for this video. Again, if you're new to the channel, welcome. Please consider subscribing. To all my existing subscribers, as well as my Patreon supporters, thanks so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.